Jake Miller sat in his small wooden chair staring at the computer screen that showed red error messages again and again. The internet connection at his ranch in Montana had been acting strange for 3 days now, and he was getting tired of calling the phone company who always said they would fix it tomorrow. His border collie Rex lay sleeping near the old wood stove, while Jake tried to figure out why his work computer kept losing connection to his clients in the city he needed to finish a big project for a bank, but every time he tried to upload files, the connection would die. The ranch had been in his family for 40 years, and Jake had moved back after his father died 2 years ago. He kept the place running with his computer work and the small income from leasing some land to neighboring farmers. Most days he liked the quiet life, but today, the broken internet was making him angry. Jake walked over to his father's old ham radio set up in the corner of the room. His dad had been talking to people all over the world with these radios for decades, and Jake had learned how to use them as a teenager. Maybe someone on the radio waves knew about internet problems in this area. He turned on the big radio and started scanning through different frequencies looking for other ham radio operators. Most of the voices he heard were talking about weather or sharing technical information about their radio equipment. Jake was about to give up when he heard something very strange. Instead of human voices, there was a pattern of beeps and clicks that sounded almost like computer data, but not quite like anything he had heard before. Jake was good with computers, and he knew what digital signals sounded like, but this was different. The pattern repeated every few minutes and seemed to be getting stronger. Jake recorded the signal on his computer and played it back several times. He noticed that some parts of the pattern matched mathematical sequences that he recognized from his computer science classes. Other parts looked like they might be trying to establish some kind of communication protocol. Over the next 2 hours, Jake analyzed the strange signal and started to understand that someone or something was trying to make contact using basic mathematical concepts. The signal would send a sequence of numbers, then wait, as if expecting a response. Jake decided to try something that felt crazy, but also exciting. He set up his radio to transmit and sent back a simple mathematical response to show that he understood the pattern. Then he waited. Within minutes, the signal changed completely. Instead of just numbers, it started sending what looked like basic computer networking protocols. Jake recognized some of the patterns from his work setting up internet connections. The signal was asking for something that looked like a network handshake. Jake spent the rest of the evening working with the mysterious signal sender to establish a basic communication link. He sent simple yes and no responses using agreed-upon number patterns, and slowly, they built up a basic language system. By midnight, Jake was exhausted, but amazed at what had happened. The signal sender had managed to communicate that they wanted access to something they called a knowledge-sharing network. Jake realized they were asking about the internet. The next morning, Jake woke up to find his computer showing a text message that had not been there before. The message was in simple English but with some strange word choices. The message said, "Hello, Earth human, we are visitors from far away, and we need help to understand your world and your people. We have been watching your signals, and we think you have a system for sharing information between all humans. We would like to learn from this system." Jake stared at the message for a long time, trying to decide if this was real, or if someone was playing a very elaborate joke on him. He typed back a simple response, asking who they were and what they wanted. The reply came quickly. "We are called the Sylvan Collective, and we travel between stars to learn about different worlds and peoples. Your world sends out many signals, and we can see that you share knowledge freely between each other. This is very unusual and interesting to us." Jake asked how they had learned English so quickly, and the response explained that they had been listening to human radio and television signals for many years, but had never tried to make direct contact before. They said they were peaceful and only wanted to learn. Brooks knocked on Jake's door just as he was typing another message to the aliens. Amy was his closest neighbor and worked as a veterinarian for all the ranches in the area. She often stopped by to check on Jake, and sometimes brought him fresh bread or vegetables from her garden. Jake let Amy in, and she immediately noticed that he looked tired and excited at the same time. She asked if everything was okay, and Jake realized he had to make a decision about whether to tell her what was happening. Amy sat down at the kitchen table while Jake made coffee, and tried to figure out how to explain that he might be talking to aliens from space. He decided to just show her the messages. On his computer screen, Amy read through the conversation between Jake and the entity claiming to be from the Sylvan Collective. She looked at Jake with a mixture of concern and curiosity, and asked if he really believed this was real contact with aliens. Jake explained about the mathematical signals and the complex networking protocols that the sender had used. He showed Amy his analysis of the original signal and how it had evolved into actual communication. Amy was a smart person, and she could see that this was either very real, or someone with incredible technical skills was playing an amazing prank. While they were talking, another message appeared on Jake's screen. The aliens were asking again about the human knowledge-sharing system, and wanted to know if Jake could help them access it. They promised they would not cause any harm, and would share their own knowledge in return. Amy looked at Jake, and said that if this was real, then Jake was probably the first human to have direct contact with aliens from another world. She said that maybe they should tell the government, or call someone official. Jake had been thinking about the same thing, but he was worried that if he called the authorities they would take over everything, and he would lose the chance to learn from these visitors. The aliens seemed friendly and genuinely interested in learning about humans. The aliens sent another message, asking Jake to make a decision about helping them access the human information network. They said they understood if he was afraid or suspicious, but they hoped he would trust them. Jake looked at Amy, and then at his computer screen. He thought about his father's advice to always help people when they asked nicely, and when it would not cause harm. He also thought about how amazing it would be to help make first contact between humans and aliens. Jake typed a message, asking the aliens exactly what they wanted, and how he could help them. The response was simple. They wanted access to what humans called the internet, so they could learn about human culture, science, and art. Amy watched as Jake made the decision that would change everything. He typed his Wi-Fi network name and password into the message, and sent it to the aliens. Then he and Amy sat back, and waited to see what would happen next. Jake watched his computer screen show numbers that made no sense at all. His internet usage meter was displaying data transfer rates that should have been impossible with his rural connection, but somehow his own browsing was working perfectly. Amy sat next to him drinking coffee and staring at the same impossible numbers. She had decided to stay at the ranch to see what would happen after Jake gave the aliens his Wi-Fi password, and now they were both watching something that broke all the rules of how internet connections worked. The aliens had sent a message thanking Jake for the access, and explaining that they would begin what they called cultural analysis. Immediately Jake had expected maybe some slow browsing, but instead, his network was handling data transfers that looked like someone was downloading the entire internet. Jake tried to explain to Amy how the data rates they were seeing should have crashed his connection completely. His little rural internet service was designed for basic web browsing and video streaming, but the aliens were somehow pulling down terabytes of information without affecting his ability to use the internet normally. After 6 hours of watching impossible data transfers, Jake received another message from the aliens. The message said they had completed their initial survey of human information systems, and were amazed by what they had found. The aliens thanked Jake again, and said they had many questions about human culture. Amy suggested that Jake ask the aliens some questions of his own, so Jake typed a message asking what they thought about human internet and what they had learned. The response came back quickly, and was much longer than the previous messages. The aliens explained that they were called Zara, and belonged to a group called the Sylvan Collective that traveled between stars to study different civilizations. They said that human information sharing was unlike anything they had seen before, because humans shared knowledge freely, without expecting payment or controls. Zara explained that most civilizations they had studied kept knowledge locked away, and only shared information through complex trade agreements, or political arrangements. The idea that humans would create a global network where anyone could access information for free was revolutionary to them. Jake asked if there were other aliens who might be interested in human internet, and Zara responded that there was another ship nearby that had been monitoring their communication. The other aliens were called the Centauri Federation, and they were more cautious about making contact with new civilizations. While Jake was reading Zara's message about the other aliens, Amy pointed to the window and said she could see strange lights moving in the sky above the ranch. Jake looked outside and saw what appeared to be two objects hovering silently about a mile away. The objects were too far away to see clearly, but they were definitely not airplanes or helicopters, because they made no sound and could hover in place. Without moving, Jake grabbed his father's old binoculars and tried to get a better look through the binoculars. Jake could see that one object was smooth and curved, with a silver surface that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. The other object was more angular and dark, with what looked like geometric patterns on its surface. Both objects were clearly not from Earth. Jake's computer made a sound indicating a new message, and when he looked at the screen, he saw that there were now two different message threads. One was still from Zara of the Sylvan Collective, but the other was from someone called Commander Lyra of the Centauri Federation Commander. Lyra's message was more formal and direct than Zara's messages. She introduced herself as the leader of a monitoring mission that had been watching Earth for signs of technological development. The Centauri Federation was concerned about the contact between humans and the Sylvan Collective. Commander Lyra explained that the Centauri Federation had protocols for first contact with new civilizations, and that the Sylvan Collective had broken those protocols by sharing technology and information without proper authorization. She wanted to speak with Jake about what had happened. Jake found himself in the middle of what seemed like an argument between two different aliens civilizations. Amy suggested that he try to be diplomatic and treat both groups fairly, since he did not understand their politics. Jake was explaining human internet culture to Zara, to both Commander Lyra and Commander Lyra, explaining that he was just a window at a black helicopter approaching the ranch, and that he did not want to cause problems because he knew that government people had probably offered to speak with both of them. The alien tried to understand landed in his front yard, raises three people in dark suits got out, along with a woman wearing a military uniform. Knowledge. Jake realized that as quiet life was about to become very complicated 4 months before making contact, before they thought anyone could appreciate their philosophy. Jake heard her talking to the government people. Commander Lyra's most professional was that the Centauri Federation was responsible for maintaining very important visibility in this peaceful and friendly space, and that woman with short brown hair between civilizations herself as Lisa Grant from the Department of Communications. The Federation had satellite monitoring had detected unusual energy signatures over Jake's ranch, aliens that they needed to investigate. If he thought the aliens might land and meet was probably the best approach. Jake was not sure, but he sent messages to both groups into his house, asking if they would be willing to have a face-to-face meeting in person. He suggested that they could all discuss the situation when they saw the two aliens, try to find a solution that everyone could accept. Both Lissa Grant stared at Zara to the meeting commander, and within an hour, for a Jake could see the two ships moving closer to his ranch. Exactly what had happened. Amy called her veterinary clinic to cancel her appointment, starting with the strange radio signals, because she said this was probably the most important Wi-Fi password. In human history, one of the men Sylvan Collective started to say first in the field about national security. The ship was beautiful and organic, looking like it had been grown. She asked Zara and Commander Lyra if they had any hostile intentions to war or flowing Earth or humanity. Lyra's ship that the Sylvan Collective was dedicated to learning and cultural ship. It was clearly mechanical. They had no interest in conquest or control. And what looked like Commander Lyra added that the Centauri Federation was committed to maintaining peace, and that they had been protecting Earth from more aggressive civilizations for years. As doors opened on both ships, many questions about alien technology and galactic looked almost exactly like the elves. Jake made more coffee and tried to process tall and graceful that his kitchen had become the location for official first contact from living plants. Commander alien civilizations came out of the Centauri ship, Morgan, and she was also arrived an hour later. Very different. And Jake learned that she was a scientist and she wore what was clearly a military uniform. Her movements had been called in to help evaluate the situation like and determine if the aliens were really from other worlds. Jake's house and Jake realized fascinated. He was about to become the first human to host an interstellar diplomatic meeting about their biology and technology. Amy laughed nervously. Zara explained and said she would make more coffee because had evolved on a world covered in vast forests. Jake opened his technology was based on biological systems. Zara smiled and thanked him for his kindness. The Centauri Federation nodded as a collection of worlds around the house formed an alliance checking for security threats and trade. Three of their technology was more mechanical and Jake realized that a simple decision to share his Wi-Fi password had started something much bigger than he had ever imagined. Realized the two aliens began to explain their different views of how human internet culture should work. And Jake found himself talking about how humans shared art and music and stories freely with anyone who wanted to sniff curiously at his Commander Lyra was impressed by how humans Jake was explaining human internet culture to Zara. Together she had been studying human online collaboration pointed out the window that the way humans worked together on projects without central authority was unique. He knew that government experienced D.R. Morgan asked about other alien ships of the helicopter landed and learned front yard. The galaxy contained hundreds of different species, along with a very different military technology and culture. Jake realized that his quiet life was about to become very complicated and knowledge opened the front door before Grant. Anyone was taking detailed notes, and Jake heard her talking to the government people about galactic law. She was using her most professional voice. She wanted to understand what first contact was with aliens very important for humanity in the long-term and friendly. The conversation short brown hair quietly observing everything herself as she suddenly asked from the Department of Communications. Everyone, she said that satellite monitoring had detected unusual energy signatures, and if they missed them while Jake's ranch batches they needed to investigate. Expression became sad. Jake decided that honesty was probably the best approach. Had been slowly losing their invited Lisa Grant and her team into his house because their traditional ways of preserving Lyra. Knowledge had become too rigid. Young people were leaving when they saw the galaxy sitting because they felt trapped by ancient customs. Lisa Grant stared at Zara and admitted that the Centauri Federation had similar, then asked Jake with their younger generation what had happened. He wanted more freedom to explore the whole story, starting with the rigid military structure that had kept and ending with centuries was making many Centauri feel isolated. One of the men in suits started to say that both alien civilization security had discovered Lisa Grant held up her hand to stop they were struggling. She asked Zara and Commander Lyra if they had any hostile intentions and ideas that humans or humanity. Zara was exactly what the Sylvan Collective was dedicated to learning. Government cultural arrived throughout, exchanged, and that they had no interest in conquest or control. Officials. Commander Lyra added that the Centauri Federation was committed to maintaining peace, and that they had been protecting Earth from more aggressive civilizations. That this was an opportunity rather than a threat. Many questions about alien technology had become an unofficial embassy with government vehicles. Jake made more coffee and tried to setting up communication equipment. His kitchen had become the location for feeding first contact and had somehow managed to prepare dinner for civilization and aliens during dinner. Kate Morgan, Zara arrived an hour later, and Jake learned that she was a scientist permanent cultural exchange with humanity life. They offered to share called in to help evaluate the situation, technology, and if the aliens were really from other world to human art and creative expression. Commander by both aliens said that the Centauri Federation could provide protection, biology, and technology. Space. Zara explained travel technology that the Sylvan Collective had evolved on a organizational and management techniques, and that their technology was based on biological systems. Was excited about the scientific possibilities. The Centauri Federation, while Lisa, as a collection of worlds about that formed an alliance, social mutual protection and trade. Jake found himself their being technology was more as mechanical if he were an expert on alien relations. Travel, all he had done was share his Wi-Fi password. Jake listened to the conversations. Day ended. Jake realized that his simple alien civilizations had started a chain of events that would change both Zara, Earth, and the alien civilizations for art and music and the government people were already making plans for formal diplomatic contact. And Dr. Morgan by how humans use the internet to solve technology problems together. She had been studying human after everyone else had gone to their hotels and said that the way humans worked together Jake had probably just made the most important decision in human history. By treating the aliens, Morgan asked about other alien civilizations. Jake looked up at the night sky, the galaxy could see the lights of both alien ships, and one very different approach. What his father would have thought about aliens parking in the backyards were much more controlling about information and knowledge. sharing
loved
the idea of talking to people from other worlds and asking questions.
Zara and Commander
about
Lyra
galactic
had
law
both
and
thanked
politics.
Jake before
She
returning
wanted
to
to
their
understand
ships for
what
the night.
first contact with
They said they would
aliens
stay
mean
on
for
Earth for
and
several more
humanity
days
to work out the details of
the
ongoing
conversation
contact
Amy had been
and
quietly
cooperation.
observing everything.
Jake went
and
to
she
bed
suddenly
that night,
asked a question
knowing
that tomorrow would bring
surprised
even more
everyone.
changes.
She wanted
and
to know
challenges.
if the aliens
but
had
he was not
families
worried
and homes,
because he had
and
learned
if they
that
missed
being
them
kind
while
and
traveling
helpful
in
could
space
lead to
Zara's
amazing
expression
things,
became
even
sad.
when you were just
She
trying.
explained that the
To
Sylvan
fix your
Collective
internet
had been
connection.
slowly losing their connection to their homeworld because their traditional ways of preserving knowledge had become too rigid. Young Sylvans were leaving to explore the galaxy because they felt trapped by ancient customs. Commander Lyra admitted that the Centauri Federation had similar problems with their younger generations, who wanted more freedom to explore and learn. The rigid military structure that had kept peace for centuries was making many Centauri feel isolated and controlled. Jake realized that both alien civilizations had discovered human internet at a time when they were struggling with their own internal problems. The free flow of information and ideas that humans took for granted was exactly what both groups needed. More government people arrived throughout the day, including scientists and military officials, but Lisa Grant managed to keep the situation calm and focused on learning rather than security concerns. She seemed to understand that this was an opportunity rather than a threat. By evening, Jake's ranch had become an unofficial embassy with government vehicles parked everywhere and people setting up communication equipment. Amy had taken charge of feeding everyone and had somehow managed to prepare dinner for humans and aliens. During dinner, Zara explained that the Sylvan Collective wanted to establish a permanent cultural exchange with humanity. They offered to share their advanced environmental restoration technology in exchange for access to human art and creative expression. Commander Lyra said that the Centauri Federation could provide protection for Earth and share their space travel technology in exchange for humans, organizational and management techniques that had proven so effective on the internet. Morgan was excited about the scientific possibilities, while Lisa Grant was thinking about the political and social implications. Jake found himself being consulted as if he were an expert on alien relations, when all he had done was share his Wi-Fi password. As the day ended, Jake realized that his simple act of kindness had started a chain of events that would change both Earth and the alien civilizations forever. The government people were already making plans for formal diplomatic contact, and Dr. Morgan was designing studies of alien technology. Sat next to Jake on his front porch after everyone else had gone to their hotels in town. She said that Jake had probably just made the most important decision in human history by treating the aliens as friends instead of threats. Jake looked up at the night sky, where he could see the lights of both alien ships, and wondered what his father would have thought about aliens parking in the backyard. The old ham radio operator would probably have loved the idea of talking to people from other worlds. Zara and Commander Lyra had both thanked Jake before returning to their ships for the night. They said they would stay on Earth for several more days to work out the details of ongoing contact and cooperation. Jake went to bed that night, knowing that tomorrow would bring even more changes and challenges. But he was not worried because he had learned that being kind and helpful could lead to amazing things, even when you were just trying to fix your internet connection. Jake woke up to find his backyard filled with construction equipment and technicians from both alien civilizations working together to build something that looked like a giant satellite dish. Zara and Commander Lyra had spent the night planning how to connect their homeworlds to Earth. Internet Mir arrived early with breakfast for everyone, including special food that Dr. Morgan had researched for the aliens. Zara could eat most human fruits and vegetables, while Commander Lyra needed foods with higher mineral content. Lisa Grant explained that both alien governments had agreed to establish Earth as the first interstellar internet hub. The project would allow beings from multiple worlds to share information and culture through human internet infrastructure. Jake watched alien technicians work with human engineers to install equipment that would boost his rural internet connection into something capable of handling interstellar data transmission. The technology was so advanced that Jake could barely understand how it worked. Dr. Morgan was documenting everything and explaining that the aliens were essentially turning Jake's ranch into the most important communication center in human history. The equipment being installed would allow instant communication across distances that normally took years for radio signals to travel within 3 days. The construction was complete, and Jake found himself looking at a communication array that stretched across several acres of his property. The aliens had been careful to preserve his house and the surrounding landscape while building their advanced technology. Zira explained that the Sylvan collective homeworld was eager to connect to human internet after hearing about the amazing variety of art and music and stories that humans shared freely. Their entire civilization was excited about the possibility of cultural renaissance. Commander Lyra said that the Centauri Federation had overcome their initial concerns about security and were now interested in human methods of organization and problem solving. Federation worlds wanted to study how humans managed complex projects through online collaboration. The first interstellar internet connection was established on a Thursday morning, with Jake clicking a button that would link his rural Montana ranch to civilizations hundreds of light years away. Lisa Grant had cameras recording the historic moment. Within minutes of the connection going live, Jake started receiving messages from beings on different worlds. The messages were automatically translated by alien technology, but Jake could tell they came from very different types of minds and cultures. A group of young Sylvans sent Jake digital artwork that combined human and alien techniques to create images that were beautiful beyond anything Jake had ever seen. The art seemed to move and change as he looked at it, telling stories without using words. Centauri engineers shared designs for space vehicles and energy systems that solved problems human scientists had been working on for decades. In return, human engineers sent back information about manufacturing techniques and quality control systems. Jake realized that his internet connection had become a two-way bridge, with humans learning as much from the aliens as the aliens were learning from humans. The exchange was happening so fast that both sides were making discoveries every day. Me spent her time helping translate between different cultural concepts because she had discovered that her veterinary training made her good at understanding non-human thinking patterns. She became an unofficial cultural interpreter. Morgan was overwhelmed by the scientific information flowing through the connection. Alien biologists were sharing data about life on hundreds of different worlds, while human biologists sent back information about Earth ecosystems. Lisa Grant was coordinating with governments around the world as more countries wanted to participate in the interstellar internet project. Jake found himself consulting with presidents and prime ministers about technical details of alien communication systems. The real breakthrough came when Jake suggested that the alien civilizations should be able to communicate directly with each other through the Earth hub, rather than each maintaining separate connections. This idea had never occurred to either alien group. Sarah and Commander Lyra worked together to modify their technology so that Sylvan worlds could communicate with Centauri worlds through the Earth internet connection. For the first time in centuries, the two civilizations started sharing information directly. Other alien civilizations detected the new communication network and started requesting permission to join. The network grew from 3 civilizations to 12 within 2 weeks. As Jake found himself managing the first galactic internet system, some of the new alien civilizations were friendly and eager to share, but others were suspicious of the free information sharing concept that humans had introduced. Jake learned that many galactic governments controlled information tightly to maintain power. A crisis developed when a group of authoritarian alien governments demanded that the information sharing network be shut down. They claimed that free access to information was dangerous and would destabilize their control over their populations. Commander Lyra explained that these governments had been maintaining power by keeping their people isolated and ignorant. The idea that any being could access information from dozens of different worlds threatened their authority completely. Jake found himself in the position of defending human internet principles to alien governments who had never experienced free information sharing. The authoritarian aliens could not understand why humans would give away knowledge for free. Ezra supported Jake by explaining how access to human internet had already begun to revitalize Sylvan culture and creativity. Young Sylvans were creating new art forms and solving old problems by combining traditional knowledge with human ideas. The authoritarian aliens threatened to use military force to shut down the Earth Internet hub unless the free information sharing was stopped. Jake was frightened, but also angry that bullies were trying to destroy something beautiful. Lisa Grant worked with Earth governments to prepare defenses while Dr. Morgan tried to find scientific solutions to the crisis. Jake spent sleepless nights trying to think of ways to protect the network that had grown from his simple decision to share. Wi-Fi suggested that Jake ask for help from all the civilizations that were benefiting from the network. She pointed out that the authoritarian governments were outnumbered by the free civilizations that wanted to keep sharing information. Jake sent messages to every world connected to the network, asking for support. In defending the right to share information freely, the response was overwhelming as beings from dozens of worlds expressed their determination to protect the galactic internet. The crisis reached its peak when the authoritarian alien fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, demanding that Earth surrender control of the internet network. Jake knew that the next few days would determine whether his gift to the galaxy would survive. Jake stared at his computer screen, showing dozens of alien warships positioned around Earth while messages poured in from civilizations across the galaxy offering to help defend the internet network he had accidentally created. The authoritarian coalition was demanding immediate surrender of the communication hub commander. Lyra had been in constant contact with Centauri Federation leadership trying to organize a defense fleet, while Zara worked with other peaceful civilizations to coordinate their response. Both aliens looked exhausted from days of non-stop diplomatic work. Amy had taken charge of managing the flood of messages from young beings on authoritarian worlds, who were begging Jake not to shut down their only source of free information. Many of them had never seen art or music or stories from other worlds before connecting to the galactic internet. Dr. Morgan was analyzing the military capabilities of the different fleets and trying to find non-violent solutions to the crisis. She had discovered that many of the authoritarian ships were old and poorly maintained because their governments spent more resources on controlling information than on military technology. Lisa Grant was coordinating with world leaders who had decided that Earth would not surrender the internet network to alien bullies. The principle of free information sharing had become a matter of human dignity and planetary sovereignty. Jake felt the weight of responsibility for all the conflict. But Amy reminded him that he had given the galaxy something beautiful, and the people trying to destroy it were the ones responsible for the violence, not him. The breakthrough came when Jake received a message from a young Centauri officer on one of the authoritarian ships. The officer explained that many crew members on the hostile fleet had been secretly accessing the galactic internet and learning about the outside galaxy. For the first time, similar messages started arriving from beings throughout the authoritarian fleet who had discovered art and music and scientific knowledge that their governments had hidden from them for centuries. The internet network was causing rebellions within the hostile ships. Jake realized that the solution was not to fight the authoritarian governments, but to give their people even more access to free information. He proposed something that shocked everyone, including the Earth government officials. Instead of defending against the hostile fleet, Jake suggested broadcasting the galactic internet directly to every ship and every world in the authoritarian coalition. He wanted to give everyone access to the network, whether their governments approved or not. Zara and Commander Lyra worked frantically to modify the transmission systems to reach the authoritarian worlds directly. Dr. Morgan helped calculate the power requirements while Amy coordinated with human engineers. The broadcast began on a Sunday morning with Jake again pushing the button that would change galactic history. The internet signal reached every world in the authoritarian coalition simultaneously, carrying with it art and music and knowledge from dozens of civilizations within hours. Protests erupted on authoritarian worlds as populations learned what their governments had been hiding from them. Young beings who had never seen creativity or free expression started demanding access to the galactic internet. The hostile fleet began to break apart as crews refused orders to attack Earth. Many ships simply left their formations and headed home to deal with revolutions on their own worlds. Others requested permission to join the Free Information Network. Commander Lyra reported that the Centauri Federation and other free civilizations were offering support to the revolutionary movements that were overthrowing authoritarian governments across the galaxy. The internet had become a tool of liberation. Jake watched news reports of celebrations on dozens of worlds as populations gained access to free information. For the first time in their histories, the galactic internet had grown from his rural Montana ranch to become a force for freedom throughout the galaxy. 6 months later, Jake stood in his backyard, looking at the gleaming new interstellar communications center that had been built around his original ranch. The building housed the most advanced communication technology in the galaxy. But Jake still lived in his father's old house. Representatives from 47 different civilizations had come to Earth for the dedication ceremony of what was now called the Golden Gateway, in honor of the statue they had created to thank Jake for his gift to the galaxy. The statue stood 12 feet tall and showed hands from different species reaching toward each other while holding a glowing orb that represented shared knowledge. It was made from gold, donated by every world in the galactic internet networks, had been appointed as the first director of interstellar cultural exchange, and she spent her time helping new civilizations join the network while preserving their unique traditions. Commander Lyra became head of network security, working to protect free information from future threats. Amy opened the first interspecies veterinary clinic and was treating pets and animals from dozens of different worlds. Dr. Morgan led the new Institute for Galactic Biology that was documenting life forms from across the galaxy. Lisa Grant became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Internet Council and worked to establish principles of free information sharing that all member civilizations agreed to follow. Jake served as the chief network administrator because everyone agreed. He understood the spirit of the internet better than anyone. During the dedication ceremony, speakers from many worlds thanked Jake for showing the galaxy that information should be shared freely, rather than hoarded by governments and corporations. The revolution he had started with his Wi-Fi password had transformed galactic civilization. Jake gave a short speech explaining that he had only done what any decent person would do when someone asked for help. He said that humans had always believed that knowledge belonged to everyone, and that sharing information made everyone stronger and smarter. The ceremony ended with the lighting of the Golden Gateway beacon that would guide new civilizations to join the galactic internet. Jake pushed the activation button one more time, knowing that his simple act of kindness had created something that would benefit beings across the galaxy for generations. That evening, Jake sat on his porch with Amy and Rex, watching ships from dozens of worlds coming and going from the communications center. The quiet ranch had become the center of galactic civilization, but Jake was still the same person who just wanted to help when someone asked nicely. Amy smiled and said that Jake's father would have been proud to know that his ham radio hobby had led to his son becoming the most important person in galactic history. Jake laughed and said his father would probably just be happy that the internet was finally working properly. The story of how Jake Miller shared his Wi-Fi password and accidentally revolutionized galactic civilization became legend on hundreds of worlds. Children learned about the human who chose kindness over fear and changed the galaxy by treating strangers as friends. Never became rich or famous in the way that humans usually measured success, but he had something better, the knowledge that his simple decision to help had made the entire galaxy a more open and connected place. The golden statue in his backyard reminded him every day that small acts of kindness could have consequences beyond imagination.